Okay, so let's talk drywall material. Before we can start mudding the walls, we're going to talk the material that you're going to need. There's really only two items that you're going to need as far as material, and that's your mud or your joint compound and your tape. So I'm going to talk about each of them. So you have three types of tape. You have what's called mesh tape, which is a netting, and some of them have self-adhesive and some of them are not self-adhesive. You have paper tape, okay? And then you have this fiber tape, which is like literally fiberglass in a roll. Depending on what I'm doing, I'll use one of these two. Okay, I will not use this one. We tried that out. They gave us some free samples or whatever you want to call it. Try those out when I worked at the hospital. We use it on some patches. To me, it ripped easy after a few wipes. It was really itchy on my fingers because I didn't realize there was actual fiberglass in the tape. I personally just don't like it. That's just my thing. Okay, on these two, if I'm doing big jobs that I know it's full sheets and it's gonna last me more than a day to finish, I'm always gonna go with paper tape. And paper tape is always from my angles. That means your corners, your angles, your angles. That's non-negotiable. You're always gonna use paper tape. Mesh tape I like using for patches. I mostly use it for patches, and if it's a smaller job or maybe it's just a couple of sheets or you have a few cuts and I know that I can still finish it in a day with hot mud, then I'll go ahead and use the mesh tape. Okay, now let's talk about some mud. Now depending on what state you're in, what area you're in, there's going to be different brands or different types of mud that is available to you. And again, some of it could be preference, some of it is just what you have available. So in California, I used to like this mud called Westpac, and there was one called Hamilton. I think one or the other bought each other out, but they don't offer that here in Texas. So what we have here is the USG sheetrock brand stuff. And I don't have a big deal with it. I prefer Lowe's hot mud, which is this stuff, over Home Depot's, just because this gives me more time to play with it. So let me just go into how they go. Okay, so I don't want to buy a big box of this just because this is for training purposes, but all purpose you're going to always use in conjunction with your paper tape. You're going to always use this for your pre-fill, which we'll talk about. And when you're putting down your paper tape, you're going to use this first because this has the most glue in it. It's not easy to sand, but it is the best to hold your tape when you're doing it, okay? So this is good for pre-fill, and this is good for when you're putting your tape on, when you first put your tape on, okay? Then second, what you're gonna have is a topping. There's different color toppings, okay? So sometimes they'll have a red button or red color. They'll have a black color. I've come to really like +3. +3 is a topping that you're gonna put over the paper when you start putting your coats, okay? And this is really nice and easy to sand. I really like using the +3. It's just my go-to. The texture is something that I just started using when I came out here. So for years and years and years, I always use all-purpose for whenever I shot texture because again, it has a lot of glue, so it's stuck to the walls really good when I shot texture. For whatever reason, when I came here, the all-purpose didn't work and it kept flattening out, or it looked like it was a flat texture rather than having definition to it. So I started using the spray texture mix, and that makes it more defined and more prominent when I'm shooting the texture. It holds up better when it comes to the paint. So I just switched over to using that. To be honest, for years in the trades when we were spraying off of the rigs that you'd have to pull with your truck, I mean, those rigs probably held, I don't know, maybe 20 boxes at a time, and we would dump whatever was left on the job site. So it didn't matter if it was all purpose, if it was topping, if it was whatever it was, we just threw it in there, watered it down, and mixed it and sprayed it. So finally, we have hot mud. Okay, hot mud, they call it quick set, easy sand, whatever you want to call it. I'm always going to use these on my patches, and there's always going to be a number. So there's 5, 20, 45, 90, and then I just found out maybe a month ago they have 120. What that stands for is how many minutes that you have to play with that. So if you're just starting out, I do not recommend using 5-minute. You can actually use either the probably 20, 45 minute, depending on how big your job is or whatever. But I don't recommend using the 5 to start out with until you get comfortable with it. And then also with that, the 120 or 90, to me, if you're going to use those numbers, you might as well just use the regular mud and let it sit overnight, you know, because you're not going to put a second coat on something if you're going to have to wait more than 90 minutes. You know, 45 is my max, and that's if I have a lot of sheets, but I want to get a second coat in a day, I'll use 45. But I can mix up a bucket of that or a bucket of 20 and then use that. So these are what you're going to use. Again, you have your tape and you have your compounds, and then this we're not even going to, I am going to use this for when I put the metal on, but that's what you got for your materials.